welcome to this very special edition of ET Now Startup Central, India's only daily show dedicated to entrepreneurship, technology and innovation. I'm Rahul Dayama coming to you from India's Startup Hub, Bangalore. Today we put the focus on ET Startup Awards, the most anticipated event really among the ecosystem. The who's who of the new and old economy got together to pick winners across 8 highly contested categories. Well, I was at the jury meet last week to bring you all the action, what really are the top voices of the jury indicating, what are the trends that entrepreneurs must watch out for. Stay tuned as we bring all of that to you on the special show today. But first up, a roundabout of the top winners who have really bagged honors at ET Startup Awards 2019. Well, the most sought after and debated category is, of course, the Startup of the Year. And it was really backed by delivery. That really is the Startup of the Year. Logistics and supply chain startup, their massive reach and a pivot to a complete logistics service firm, among other things, really clinched it for them. The other contenders really included Lenskart, Purefit, Zerodha and Nykaa, among others. So the Startup of the Year really has gone to delivery. Another important category, the Midas Touch of the Year, that really goes to the best investor who not only gets good exits but also really identifies the early bets. That has gone to Bejul Somaiya of Lightspeed Venture Partners. As indicated, Bejul's early bets and exits on startups like Oyo, Udan, It's Cash worked in a stride. The other contenders really included the likes of Mukul Arora of Saif Partners, Anand Daniel of Axel, Sama Capital and Renuka Ramnath of Multiples. Moving on, the award in the Women Ahead category, which is exclusive to women entrepreneurs, has been backed by Priya Krishnan of Clay Schools. The Play School is really helping women get back to work after childbirth, even as it has become a brand for high-quality daycare centers. The Comeback Kid category is also highly watched out for by entrepreneurs who have re-scripted their success. This has gone to Snapdeal this time, having scuttled efforts of an acquisition from Flipkart and rebooting its business strategy. It is really considered as one of the biggest survival stories in the startup ecosystem. Snapdeal's Kunal Bahl and Rohit Bansal have backed the top honors. Best on campus for the category of entrepreneurs really who started off their ventures at college campuses has been backed by Autumnberg Technologies. Their energy efficient home appliance and use case in the Bharat market really worked for the startup. The bootstrap champ for startups who have scaled significantly without external funding has gone to Manish Chaudhary of Fit and Glow Healthcare. Building a solid consumer brand and turning profitable helped the startup win over this category. Moving on, the social enterprise category for startups really having impact on society has gone, it's a tie here, has gone to 2 startups, Social Corps and First Step Digital. Social Corps provides data insights to help governments, non-profits make informed decisions, while First Step is solving challenges in the area of menstrual hygiene. Well, the top innovator award has been backed by Charit Bhograj of Trigog Health. The startup really is known for developing quick cardiac diagnosis and treatment and was picked up for really having a high impact potential in India with its products. Congratulations to all the winners from the SUC team as well. Moving on, as promised, when do you get to see unicorns, senior bureaucrats and bankers all under one roof? Well, of course, when the Times Group is involved, we now really bring you all the top voices from the jury that picked these winners. First up on the show, ace banker Uday Kotak has made a strong pitch for Indian startups, asks government to ensure policy does not come in the way of innovation. But how do traditional businesses really insulate themselves from the big shake-up really coming from the startup ecosystem? Take a look at what Mr. Kotak has to say. What are you really looking forward to as a jury member in terms of category or startups, or the fact that you're excited that there are a lot of interesting startups really that you would get to choose from and decide who the winner is?
I think I believe that the new India, which is what we are seeing, is being driven by this whole era of creation with new companies, different mindsets, which is just quite amazing. And I'm very proud of how this whole evolution is happening. And we need to ensure that we support this wholeheartedly as a country in terms of policy and build to creating world-class companies from India.
You did mention about the fact that there is a lot of innovation happening. It's also getting backed by venture capitalists. We've seen a lot more unicorns in the last 6 months than we did last year. So do you see that optimism continue, the fact that a lot of Indian companies are now solving global problems, also going global really from the market here?
My view is, finally, at the heart of it has to be simple solutions which disrupt the market and do good and do well. And that's how I would like to see this whole ecosystem build, and solutions, because of the digital world as well, can be global while serving interests certainly of India.
So last couple of questions from a policy perspective. Of course you said, but there's so much that has happened over the last few years. You think a lot more has to be done to make policies more agile, responding to new age technologies, ride sharing and things like that, that will really significantly address the market?
My view on this is, in some ways, policy should not get in the way. Let evolution happen and ensure that hurdles don't come in the way, because entrepreneurs will find solutions and move forward. They just won't want a free way ahead of them.
Lastly, for entrepreneurs really watching this, your 2 bits of advice on what should they do. Also, I know you sort of keep a track of what's happening. As a company, also companies are a lot more agile, keeping a track on what technologies are panning out. Startups are really changing the ways. What would you tell entrepreneurs really solving problems right now?
So as you go ahead, and this is my advice on the fellow entrepreneur, as you go ahead and build your business, you will find excitement, but you'll suddenly find things change. And your business, just as you are disrupting the marketplace, something can happen where you yourself run the risk of getting disrupted. And that's where you need the alacrity to make changes to what you are doing also at the same speed. And as you grow, make sure that in addition to being a good entrepreneur, you build a professional process orientation to building sustainable business.
How do traditional companies really ensure they're on top of the game and know what's happening? Something that you at Kotak Mahindra Bank are also doing, keeping an eye on new technologies, fintech services that are solving problems?
No, we have to actually engage, collaborate, partner with new ideas, new companies, and be bold to disrupt ourselves.
It's not possible for India to grow to a 5 trillion economy by really ignoring the startup stratosphere. Strong words really coming in from Uday Kotak there. Moving on to another big voice. After getting a mega $1 billion exit from the Flipkart acquisition, Sachin Bansal is really upping the game as an investor. What are all the new businesses he's entering? What does he look for in entrepreneurs that he eventually backs? Well, I caught up with him. Take a look. What really went into picking those top winners at the startup of the year? Was there a common trend all throughout the startups that the jury had some consensus on?
I think jury essentially was looking for high quality teams which are attacking big problems. That if they are successful in what they are doing, would they change things significantly for in the society or in the business that they are doing, right? And we were looking for winners of the future. And that was a single criteria. Apart from that, of course, every jury member brought their own thought process to this discussion, but I think eventually all of us were looking for future big companies coming out of this.
Sort of creating impact, solving India problems. One category that you were personally sort of looking forward to and sort of, more engaged when it comes to discussions?
Yeah, I think the social enterprise was a very interesting discussion, and of course, Startup of the Year was a very interesting
that's the
discussion as well.
topic.
Yeah. So it was both were very exciting.
Got it. Last couple of questions, from you've been very active in terms of investments, be it CQ, that is mobility, EV. You're also excited about financial services. Any particular sectors apart from this that you want to double down and be very active going ahead?
Yeah, I think financial services is very interesting for us. It's a sector we believe that is not yet touched by technology as much as what it can be. But yeah, I think we are right now we are very broad in our focus. But I think financial services and transportation, as you said, right? These are the sectors that we're looking
It's a trend that we see. For entrepreneurs really watching this, what's the best way to pitch to Sachin Bansal? Is it really you're part of the sectors that you've already invested? What's the best way? And what really will sort of clinch? What gets you on to really invest in a startup? The one common trait really.
I think essentially from all my learnings of being in this industry and being as an operator and an investor, I think the summary of my learning is that it's great teams in outstanding markets, which makes a good company. Because I believe that outstanding markets allow you to play in a big game. And great teams are the ones which take the right calls, hire the right people, get the right investors, take care of the company. I think eventually it's all about people.
Lastly, from a policy standpoint for startups, the government has been pushing, EV has been one bet. You think things are a lot better for an entrepreneur now than when you way back really started off? Of course, things have changed so much. But from a policy point, there's a lot more that government can do to protect Indian companies really, with MNCs competition really breathing down the neck?
Absolutely. I think the situation is way better than now as compared to in the past. I don't think government, till 5 years ago, governments didn't even knew that startups existed, right? So they were largely talking to the big businesses. They had a seat on the table. Small companies had no say, right? But today we see even in the budget, people are talking about startups, and at least they're talking about it. I think that's a good start. Today, if you're a startup and you have some work with either a state government or a central government, there are people who are willing to lend you an ear and listen to your problems. Solutions also sometimes come out, sometimes don't come out, but I think at least there's an acknowledgement these are the companies of the future which will create, it's not just the big old business houses, it's also new companies which will create value for the economy.
But should a lot more be done to protect the interests of Indian companies itself, with a lot of foreign capital coming in, a lot of foreign competition coming in?
I think the fact is that India is an open economy, and we are a much more open place to do business as compared to any place in the world, right? I mean, I think in some ways we are even more open than US, right? Where foreign competition is much more accepted here. I would say that it has pros and cons, right? I think but I would say if you think long term, having our own businesses, having our own startups, own entrepreneurs,
having our own data
here, and then helping them go global and capture other countries, markets in other countries. I think that is the right approach. And I would say yes, more needs to be done. But I think already things are improving. I think there are some steps being taken, but yes, more can be done.
Sachin Bansal there again making a strong pitch for domestic companies. Moving on to a unicorn this time. OYO's Ritesh Agarwal has announced a $2 billion buyback of shares from early investors. He also really spends a lot more time in China than the OYO headquarters in Gurugram here. But what global learnings has OYO had, and are they planning to tie up into the IPO route anytime soon? I find out. From being the Startup of the Year, ET Startup Awards, to now being a jury member. One, how was the experience? And in terms of the most debated category, or the one category that you were really invested in, what was it?
So look, I think first off, I'm very lucky to be a part of the juror group. This is a fantastic list of jurors. I'm very privileged to be in the group. You have high quality entrepreneurs like Harsha, Sachin in the list. You have high quality leaders like Uday, Satyan, Renuka ji in the list. I think it was fantastic being around them and just hearing diverse perspectives. But there was one consistent view. Everybody was entrepreneurial. Uday Saab is a first generation entrepreneur. Satyan built Times Internet grounds up from the very early days. So everybody had an entrepreneurial perspective. That was very exciting. Categories that I was invested in, I would say probably each one of them. And that was just not me, everybody. Because it's just such a special award, and we want to have the opportunity of making sure that we do our bit. Now look, at the end of the day, there is always going to be, potentially 2 or 3 winners, but you have to choose one. And I think in that one, and the 2 or 3 as well, there was a lot of discussion, but very, very excited about the list that is out there.
Okay. One common theme talking to other jury members has been building for India, scaling it up and then going global, something OYO has sort of set an example on. So going ahead, you're investing aggressively in the US market, the China market. Will that really be a big focus area for OYO, and what learnings have you really had from the experience so far?
So our experience has been fairly straightforward. Solving a real problem, investing in people, infrastructure, better lives and jobs gets every country to believe that you're making a real difference. And if you make a real difference, the country accepts you wholeheartedly. And from our perspective, I see more and more entrepreneurs who are thinking about a global world, who are thinking about a world where solving problems is more important than where you started the company at. And a lot of our predecessors have shown us this, whether this is TCS or Infosys, whether this is Zoho or Freshdesk. They are all fairly global companies, and we are hopefully in the path of making a real difference worldwide.
All right. Last couple of questions. When it really comes to learnings from India, you're also diversifying into various categories. So in terms of focus areas, what is it that will, be a massive focus area for OYO when you go ahead? Massive investments that you're making in several categories, that is.
So look, one of the things that I've said for many years but is not heard as much is our dream is to bring better lifestyle for common man, no matter what. So from our perspective, that's one singular view. And the second singular view is our competencies. We know how to get real estate at the best price, renovate it the quickest, operate it well, and fill it up. These are 4 things that we understand better than any other company. So wherever we can get our mission of better living and use these 4 competencies, you would find us trying to make a difference. Whether that is hotels, whether that is food, whether that is weddings, we will consider each of these opportunities as being key. India is a key market for OYO, one of the leading markets, and we want to make sure that we can make a difference to people's lives every day. For example, in Delhi, we now have over 3% market share of weddings that happen in the city, right? So that's pretty significant. So 1 in 30 weddings would happen at an OYO hotel. I feel that, at a weddings banquet. Let me be fair to Sandeep and his company, which is a part of our family. So I feel that our ability of bringing the competencies to Sandeep's company was a reason why, and along with his capability of execution, we are able to make a big difference.
And sort of broad-based. But in terms of, IPO plans, profitability, of course, you've indicated that, that's been a focus area. IPO, few more years really in the scheme of things while you go about aggressively expanding global markets and really put the trigger on expansion?
So look, from my perspective, I have just invested a little bit of capital in the company. I feel that our company already had over $1 billion of balance sheet. Now we are adding more to the balance sheet. So from our perspective, we do not have any view to communicate on capital raising plans. Our focus is just one. It's a big mission. How do we keep executing and creating beautiful living spaces for people across the world? In terms of financials, look, we do not give any forward-looking guidances other than our annual report. But if you look at our annual report, our company has grown over 4 times in top line, and the losses continuing to come down by half. Our belief is we will keep building a strong track record. What is that is not a guidance that I'm providing today, but our belief is if we keep doing a good job, the financial track record will keep getting built.
I know you have to rush, you have a flight to catch. Last, we've seen SEBI sort of talk about differential voting rights and easing those norms. As an entrepreneur and someone who really started off young, how crucial it is for Indian entrepreneurs to also retain control over their companies and set that precedent early on, because now it's going to be unicorns, investments, massive. We're going to see a lot of companies coming in. How do you see this view?
So first off, I think the government is being extremely entrepreneurial friendly by means of, in the budget they announced about the angel tax and how they're making a difference. The SEBI has come out with the differential voting rights. SEBI's, mid-sized company platform. Very few people talk about it, but there's some fantastic companies out there. India Mart's listing has been a great success. So I feel that the government, RBI, SEBI are all making a concerted effort to make Indian startups successful, and I congratulate the government and all the regulatory bodies in that direction.
From one unicorn to another, food tech really has been a fiercely fought space, with battle lines now really coming down to Swiggy and Zomato. What will really Swiggy do to maintain its competitive edge? They're also really increasing investments in daily essentials and newer categories. Well, Swiggy is really hoping to maintain its edge with these investments. I caught up with the usually reclusive Sriharsha Majeti of Swiggy to find out what they plan to do. What is it that, in terms of a checklist or a criteria, when you go about looking for any 2-3 trends that you would largely want to sort of focus on, India-specific problems or solving at scale, that would really appeal to you, has appealed to you as a jury member?
Absolutely. So we will be looking for the scale, the potential scale of the impact that companies can give to the stakeholders that they're solving for, and also how meaningfully it impacts the lives of, it may affect the lives of maybe smaller people, but in like transformative ways. So it's obviously a bit of number of people and the size of the impact that you're going to make on their lives. Some of the other things that I've talked about that will be super interesting to watch out for are people who are building India first businesses, people who are building businesses that give like a fillip to the macro trends for India, that will make sure that whatever pace we need to grow at is buoyed by some of the work that these people are doing.
Interesting. Would you agree that it is also perhaps the best time to be an entrepreneur in India, in terms of optimism, unicorns? This year alone, we have added a lot more unicorns than we did, and we are raring towards the 100 mark in the next few years. Also, what really are the challenges from an ecosystem point of view that should be solved to encourage entrepreneurs to really go ahead?
I think everything's kind of falling in place. We have a vibrant investor ecosystem. We have a lot more startups who've made enough mistakes for the newer startups to come and learn from. Even talent is becoming easier now because of how impactful startups have been. A lot more people from the traditional workforce have been coming and contributing. So all of these are great tailwinds for startups who want to build large companies for the future. So I think we have everything we need. We just need to make the most of it.
We have everything in place, sort of take it forward. Last couple of questions, in terms of Swiggy itself, what would really be the big focus area for the coming year ahead? You're making interesting investments in areas like daily essentials, milk, of course, the food side of business is also critical, but what really is the biggest focus area?
So our mission is to elevate the quality of lives of our urban consumers by giving them unparalleled convenience. And we have some unique capabilities that make us specially suited for some of that. So the journey has begun obviously a few months recently, and we're seeing some very interesting feedback from the consumers. Some of them absolutely love it, and we're going to be making investments mostly in this category. So there are a host of categories that we can do that with our existing capabilities that enable us to build large businesses faster and more efficient than even we could when we built the food delivery business. So we'll make all our pushes on building out this category of convenience in all the geographies that we're going to be in.
In terms of expansion itself, would it be going deeper into the markets that you're present? We sort of took that approach early on. You're also expanding into several cities while you offer these services. So in terms of a strategy of expansion?
It's a bit of both. So we are expanding into cities, but we're also launching new categories in the cities that we've been around for much longer. So there is no perfect answer, but it's going to be a bit of both. Because the teams that work on launching new categories and the teams that go launch new cities are... Sorry?
We'll of course sort of look at how best you can sort of expand it. But lastly, your message to entrepreneurs, who are building businesses, one or two qualities that you want to really tell them to sort of thread the path in the current circumstances, that is when opportunities are there, investments are there, it's solving those interesting problems.
I think what we can do a lot more of is to invest disproportionately, even more disproportionately in talent. And do everything to set them up for success and make sure you build stable long-term teams, which is when you unlock kind of tangential, like non-linear shareholder value. So that's what maybe we can all do more of. We have our own way to improve, but that's an observation that I've been kind of living by.
Moving on really to the big investors on the jury, DST Global, backed by billionaire Yuri Milner, has been betting big on the India story. With optimism back among VCs, what will DST really look to bet on? Rahul Mehta, the managing partner of DST Global, weighs in on the India strategy going ahead. Your first sense, when you go out there and pick winners, what is it that you're looking for in terms of a checklist? Do you have one at all, while you really go out there and pick those winners?
I think it's very similar to what I would look at as my life as an investor as well. But your primary objective is figuring out the best team and the best founders overall, because that's where you get disproportionate value created. And then you're looking for like how large is the market opportunity, how big is the product innovation, the competitive advantage that the team has really, and how big could it be. That's fundamentally what you're really looking for in a way.
Okay, interesting. But any particular, category that you're personally really excited about? Is it the Midas Touch of the Year or the Startup of the Year that sort of is the big draw?
I think all the categories are very interesting, and it's a very interesting combination of not just the commercial consumer internet kind of startups, but you have a bunch of healthcare companies, you have some education ones. So actually the combination of all of them makes it like really interesting. The startups of the year, and those are like all the more prestigious ones, as everybody would call it. But there's a lot of interesting names in like the college startups or in the social enterprises. The amount of work that's going on into healthcare and agriculture in particular in this shortlist you guys have put together is incredible.
All right. From a fund perspective itself, interesting bets, of course, that you've made over the last few years. But going ahead, what is it in terms of sectors, or is that the idea to continue the pace of investments, the pace of the sectors also that you're focused on and taking it forward?
Well, I think the focus remains the same as it has always been before. And we will be as active as it's all about the founders. If they're creating interesting ideas, we'll basically want to back them. And the pace of innovation in India is only accelerating. And you're seeing very interesting India-specific ideas that are coming up as well, which makes it quite interesting as an investor to be spending time in India.
One interesting trend that you spoke about is solving for India. We're seeing a lot of startups solve for India and also sort of take it global, right? That's becoming a trend of starts with a lot of startups going global. Is that something that we will see increasingly happen as we move ahead?
I think you're seeing more and more of that, right? The first generation of Indian internet startups was very much about I'm building the X of India. In the last 3-4 years, the kind of startups we've seen have been very much about solving local problems. And it's about reaching the Bharat as well, in a way, right? So we're targeting beyond the 50 million users. And we're seeing a lot of innovation in that space, be it like commerce, be it gaming, or any other sector as well. And I think financial services is another one where there's a lot of scope in India.
Good. Lastly, before I let you go, we had added several unicorns this year, much more than what we did last year. What's your bet? When do you see India hitting the 100 unicorn mark, really? What's your bet?
I think that's a hard one to say, but I would say I would be looking forward to a number of 10 billion plus outcomes. I think the mantra is moving away from unicorn into the 10 billion outcomes, and we've seen a couple in India already. And I think over the next 5 years we should be seeing many more.
Well, but what really went into picking the winners of ET Startup Awards 2019? What traits did the jury really evaluate on before deciding on the winners? Let's hear out to the other jury members. Renuka Ramnath, founder of Multiples Alternate Assets, Satyan Gajwani, Vice Chairman of Times Internet, and Dilip Khandelwal of SAP Labs India, to understand what was really the consensus that the jury arrived at. One big learning, one takeaway for you, and one category that you were really excited through the discussions, and what really clinched it for the Startup of the Year.
Well, first of all, it was a phenomenal experience because there was huge debate, discussion. There was all cutting-edge work which is going on in India, and all categories they were very close, and tremendous amount of work in each category, and there was massive amount of discussion. And it's taken us close to about 3.5 hours. So it just goes to show the amount of hard work we've put into this. But it was wonderful, and I think the area where there's huge amount of discussion was the Startup of the Year. All of them have done outstanding work, and to figure out one which has made a massive impact to India, to the size and scale, to have scaled up, and to have really grown and expanded in both revenues and in terms of profits. All that we examined very close, and on the quality of leadership and the quality of the founders, all that we looked at. And I think the Startup of the Year category was really, really close.
All right. In terms of a policy push, of course, you're seeing the government push through so much, making it life easier for startups, EV push, the mobility one. So that would really open up a lot more opportunities for startups, really, and also look at government as a customer?
No, so you'll have disruption in every single area. But one area where there'll be a huge amount of disruption will be mobility and in battery storage. And that is really the area of the future for India. Both mobility and storage, because we have to move away from imports, we have to provide clean quality of life for our citizens, and these areas will be very critical. Thank you.
One last question. The health campaign we're running, there are a lot of myths and unverified information regarding healthness, fitness on the internet space. How important is it to stay clear of them and take informed decisions when it comes to health?
Well, it's absolutely important. The most important thing we can live and survive with is our health. And good quality information is important. Constantly getting tests is important. And I think the most important thing is to be physically fit all the time. And therefore you need to sweat it out regularly and constantly. And health is truly wealth. And that's important for Indians.
How does it feel like to be part of the jury? Also, ET Startup Awards is called as the Oscars of Startup Inc. Really highly looked forward to in terms of event. What are you really looking forward to most in terms of categories, in terms of, something that you're really looking forward to?
So I think it's a fascinating time in India being a part of the startup ecosystem. I just really love the energy, excitement which they bring in. And along with the energy and excitement, I think just creating and disrupting various business models and just creating new startup which can really shape India. So I think we're really excited to be here. Being a part of this award as a part of jury, I think it is just fantastic. You just get to see the best and the best of the startup ecosystem in India. And I feel so happy that we are honoring the best people, because it's the right platform for budding entrepreneurs ultimately to come on the stage and be recognized.
What's your checklist or criteria really when you go out there and pick? Are there specifics that you're looking? Of course, it would vary depending on categories, but what really are you keeping in mind while you pick up those winners?
I look for really good, strong founder along with a strong founding team. The second thing is the startup is able to scale. Third aspect is there a big technology element which can help them scale? And fourth, I think I always don't miss it, is do you have the right customers whom they are interacting from the beginning, and creating this product along with them in order to make a big differentiation.
All right. A few more. India, we've seen a boom of unicorns earlier this year in the last 6 months. That is tech companies, all sorts of SaaS companies, fintech companies. There is a lot more optimism now. What do you think this optimism is really coming from? Or the fact that they now also have challenges to solve globally? Indian startups are also now solving global problem really?
I think I was also talking in my previous session. I think India always had a problem with having to get young tech startup because of just pure addressable market in India. In the past, what to happen was you start creating good tech companies, but in order to scale, you just tightly move them to the US because you feel that addressable market is much more. In that sense, in the last couple of years, the environment and the ecosystem in India is changing. You're trying to look at a lot of customers willing to adopt new innovations and all those things. I think that's why you see a lot of things which is changing in startup being done out of India, because there's an addressable market which is also getting changed and shaped up.
Of course, the capital is available. Lastly, for entrepreneurs, what is it that one should have right now at a time when there are a lot of opportunities? It's also a challenging time. What are those 1 or 2 traits of the path that entrepreneurs should tread right now, from your own experience at SAP Labs also? What is it that they should really keep an eye on?
I think don't quit. I think people try to quit so fast. I think startup has a cycle. You will go through the tough times. You will have the grinding times, and I think don't quit. Just if you're very clear with what you want to achieve, just focus on that aspect and keep on pushing.
Fierce discussions really among the jury members went on for more than 3 hours. What was that one thing that sort of clinched it for the startup of the year? Was there a common theme element across categories that sort of helped the jury zero down on the winners?
No, I think in every deliberation, you're weighing a few different factors. You're thinking about profitability and valuation growth, but you're also thinking about impact to society and relevance in India and on the world landscape. And I think, I feel very happy about, our choice, but ultimately it came down to the impact on society, because there are going to be a lot of businesses that make a lot of value and a lot of money, but how many of them are really going to be transformative to the fabric of the country? And, the company we chose is one that can enable a number of other businesses and be one of the critical drivers of India's growth story as a whole.
Got it. In terms of the quality of entrepreneurs that we've seen over the last few years, there's of course abundant capital available, solving Indian problems, but also going global. So do you see that trend continue, the fact that the enthusiasm that has come in, the unicorns that we saw this year in the last 6 months, double from last year, so the enthusiasm, the optimism continuing?
Absolutely. I mean, the quality of founders, the quality of companies, and the scale of impact every year is getting better. The speed by which they grow, the level of penetration they can develop. Having seen it for the last 10 years, every year is more exciting than the year before that, and the last few years has really been an inflection point in the opportunity.
Your sense when you picked up winners in several categories, what was one theme that stood out across? What is it that really caught your attention?
I would say that the depth of impact that these innovations have done. Is it enabling more people to work? Are they bringing back people to employment? Is it making something more affordable? So I would say impact is a very, very big thing. Okay. So impact the alternative word for impact can also be scale.
That's right. Impact and scale, really. But one interesting trend that we're seeing out is Indian companies not only solving local problems here, but also a lot of companies go global. What's your take? Do you see a lot of that happening? The fact that there are similar problems to solve in Southeast Asian markets. We're also going to develop markets now. Some of the startups have made inroads there as well.
So in today's day and age, everyone thinks about the global addressability of whatever they do. I don't think people are only looking at what I can do in India. Although I would say that companies like Flipkart, made it really big by only looking at an Indian market. But I wouldn't swing to the other extreme to say that suddenly now all Indians are looking to see how they will address global problems and only employ technologists in India. I think for Indian entrepreneurs for a long, long time to come, India will be the biggest market.
And of course, we have a lot of problems to solve here locally.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Last couple of questions on your fund itself, in terms of strategy going ahead. Will the pace of investments continue? We've seen unicorns, your portfolio also, delivery, that is. So the pace of investments continue. I know you're sector agnostic, so to say, that's been the mantra. But going ahead, what are those few bets that you're looking to make as we move ahead?
First, to answer your question, the pace will very much continue. If anything, I expect the pace to become a little faster because more and more enterprises and entrepreneurs are realizing that capital market dependency is fickle. Private equity is a good way to raise capital or restructure capital to grow their companies. So the pace will only increase. We have traditionally as well and continue to be very strong investors in the BFSI sector. That's the largest consumer of capital. It's the largest need of the country. So there is perfect match between what a PE brings to the table and what the industry wants. Besides that, areas where technology is disrupting business models, where we can go and create new companies of extraordinary value continues to be of interest. In the consumer space, in the pharma space, so we are looking at, consumer tech, healthcare tech, and, the usual mobility, digital opportunity that is there.
Interesting startups there, sort of keeping an eye on all the sectors you've listed. Largely for your message to entrepreneurs now, when the opportunity is there is capital available, the government in terms of a policy push is also in place. What should they really be focusing on in terms, your 2 bits of advice really?
So, one I would say to entrepreneurs that be very, very careful in how you assemble your team and how you build a culture within your firm, because and it is the people who you assemble who are going to build the culture within the firm. 2, don't come from constraints, just go from opportunities, because today we are living in a world where there is capital and there are people who are willing to come and work in these young enterprises, and there are investors who are willing to invest behind good people and powerful ideas to create very large enterprises. So don't curtail your vision assuming that there are some constraints, because such constraints are not that real anymore. And thirdly, I would say that as you're building the company, what are you doing socially? What in terms of impact? In terms of impact, in terms of are you building a worthy enterprise? Don't only chase building a valuable enterprise. Simultaneously, also chase building a respectable enterprise, worthy enterprise, where people want to really engage, whether as customers, investors, employees, or any other stakeholder. I think that would be my other advice.
Interesting takeaways from the jury there, but digging in a little more deeper, how did the jury really arrive at the winners among 40 contenders? What was really the most discussed, debated categories? I caught up with Archana Rai, the Economic Times South editor, who was present at the jury meet, to understand what really transpired behind the closed doors of the jury meet. Take a look. What really was one major theme that sort of stood out across categories? We'll come to the while, in terms of what clinched it for certain winners, but what was that one common thread that you saw jury sort of play out and sort of decide the winners across categories?
Hi, thanks for having me. And it was, as always, discussions at the ET Startup Award jury meeting tend to be very informed and very detailed, and this year was no different, really. But it's also an indication of how much the industry has grown and how much of how much it has captured both popular imagination as well as, I think, got the attention of policymakers across sectors and industries. The impact that startups are having has only grown since ET first began in 2015, with awarding startups. So now they are seen no longer as a curiosity; they are seen as integral to the change that's happening in India. So I think, and that came across very much in today's discussion, because I think the single most important theme that ran through all the discussions across categories was how impactful is this in the context of what India requires. So it wasn't so much about, is this solving a particular problem, but really what is the large impact this is having for India. It could be an inspirational entrepreneur. It could be a company that is, sort of answering some of the toughest questions that exist in the market, so to speak. So that really was the dominant theme,
All right.
I think.
Any particular category that the jury deliberated a little longer, the discussions ran through longer, or was it like a well-balanced, fact that they focused on categories? Or generally startup of the year is highly debated, watched out for too?
That's true. As always, the categories Midas Touch for the best investor and the startup of the year, which is really the big prize, tend to be discussed for longer, for the reason that the contenders in those categories have more complex, stories also to offer, because they've been at it longer and they've, sort of have more detail to share. So to that extent, those categories do get discussed more. But again, what stood out this year was the sort of depth and the breadth of the discussion across categories. Almost every single category was discussed in detail. And there were particular things that they were looking for in categories. For instance, in scale, whether startups can actually deliver scale is another theme that was running through a lot of the discussions, because I suppose that's an important thing, right?
True,
because they do want to award companies which will, in a sense, stand the test of time.
Of course.
So that was also there. But there were detailed discussions across categories, definitely.
I know I'm being biased, but for the startup of the year, what was it that really clinched it for them? And of course you could also weigh in with your views on other categories on what really helped them, because we do understand, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussions really through. So what really clinched it for the winners in that case?
Yeah, I began by telling you really about the common theme that was dominant for this, about, sort of how impactful will this be for India, is a question I think that really sort of remained kind of constant through the entire discussion. And in the case of the startup of the year, the fact that Delivery, the company that actually finally was sort of chosen as the winner, is in the area of logistics, which is definitely one of India's largest and biggest challenges. And to have a company that has attempted to, sort of come in as sort of as a startup, address that problem and resolve it to the point that it has, and scale, and of course wow investors while doing it, was certainly sort of the factors that swung it in that favor. Huge impact for India and great business metrics.
With that, we come to an end to this special edition. The big takeaways really being from the jury that evaluated several startups, that there's still a massive potential for startups looking to solve for India, and of course solid unit economics and the potential to scale are key as well. We hope you enjoyed this special edition. Remember to stay tuned to ET Now Startup Central every weekday at 6 p.m.